This webinar is brand new content. I mean, it's content that I know like the back of my hand, but presenting it in this form is new for me. So I'm really excited to share it with you for this inaugural Extraordinary Ability Bootcamp webinar. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we're going to be talking about how you can live your dreams, how you can have more freedom. So just by way of introduction, as we get started, some of you are familiar with us, some of you are new. So my name is Sophie Alcorn. I'm the founder of Alcorn Immigration Law. We've recently won a lot of awards for Best Immigration Law Firm for Startups in California. And we have amazing top attorneys in our practice. Our mission is to overcome borders, I would say really transcend borders, expand opportunity, and connect the world by practicing compassionate, cutting edge, and rigorous immigration law in service of the betterment of humanity. So I'm all about freedom and helping more people to have more freedom. So I'm really excited that this webinar and the tools and services we provide are about that, and to welcome you here today to meet us. This is me. My hair changes color sometimes. It's already been a topic of very important discussion in the chat window for those of you following. But I have a lot of hats. I am a board certified immigration and nationality law specialist by the State Bar of California. There's, I think, probably less than 1% of immigration lawyers have that designation. I'm a second generation immigration lawyer. My dad was an immigration lawyer and my mom was his client from Germany. So I like to say that I have immigration in my blood. I write a TechCrunch column. I'm a TechCrunch contributor. My weekly immigration advice column is called Dear Sophie. So you can catch that in TechCrunch or Extra Crunch every Wednesday. And I've won some awards, and I'm very, very happy to be here with you today because I love, one of the reasons that I created my practice in Silicon Valley, why I founded Alcorn Immigration Law, is because I really like working with entrepreneurs and dreamers and rebels and people who want to find it's a loaded word, but hacks, right? So I'm all about finding creative and legal hacks for people to use so that they can do what they want quickly, efficiently, successfully, and legally. So Alcorn Immigration Law, we support people who dream of living and working in the United States. So we're working with a lot of startup founders from all over the world, people who want to start hardware, B2B SaaS platforms, new cutting edge Gen Z social network platforms, food science. There's so many fascinating industries that we support here. I'm physically in Mountain View right now in Silicon Valley, where our practice is located. We then go on to support these founders as their companies scale, and we work with a lot of technology companies that are trying to find ways to retain top talent and really offer immigration as a benefit, a reward, an incentive to stick around. So not a ball and chain where somebody is stuck, but I will support you. We hope you will stay with us, sort of a thing. So really love working with tech companies, and it would not be Alcorn Immigration Law if we did not also support families, the families of all of these individuals, people in the tech space, because you know what? Sometimes if you can marry a US citizen because you're in love and you have a good faith relationship, that might just be the fastest way to a green card. So we'll be talking about all of that today and more. But the primary, reason you're all here today is to focus on these extraordinary ability visas and green cards. So the O1A, the EB1A green card for extraordinary ability, and the EB2 national interest waiver green card. If you're not quite extraordinary, there are still other ways to get green cards. So, we've done hundreds of these over the last 5 years, since I started the firm, kind of in a startup-y fashion, out of my kitchen, right? But we've grown. We have a team of about 15 people right now, professionals, 5 attorneys, and many paralegals, so we can specialize in different case types. And we've supported a lot of people to succeed at immigration. And this whole extraordinary ability concept stemmed from the fact that I would talk to people who call me for case consultations, and they'd be very desperate, and they would ask me to take what I was afraid were very borderline cases where I didn't think that this person had a Nobel Prize, but how could we do it? But they were begging me to take their case. And I would say, look, it's really risky. I don't know if we can support you. And they would say, please, I want to take the risk. We just need to do it. And then we would win. So, I can't guarantee winning in any particular case. That is not ethical. I want to be ethical. But basically what I'm trying to say is we've helped a lot of people who don't have Nobel Prizes to succeed at these immigration categories in a very easy way. I think because of our creativity and because of the way we usher people through the process and support them to get more evidence, better evidence, the right types of evidence, by legitimately engaging in additional professional activities to fully qualify before we file. So some of the particular stories that I'm really proud of, I'll tell you more about later. But one, I mean, you're all here because you know about a little bit about U.S. immigration, so you know what the administration has been like for the last 4 years, and hopefully we're turning a tide. But yeah, this individual, I'm really proud of this, said, without them in this particular challenging time, sure that the result would have been different. By the way, I have been approved. So that was for a startup founder with his, with her second successful company. And then the other one was very difficult, but this individual was stuck in a very rare visa called an E2, where basically he was working for a company, a multinational that was from his home country, and they transferred him over. And it wasn't like an H-1B where he could switch to any other company. He was stuck, and he really needed an O1 because we couldn't go through the H-1B lottery, and this new company needed him like yesterday for the startup that he was critical to. But we had to tell them, look, this is very risky. I don't know that you qualify yet. But we successfully navigated him through. So it's situations like those where over hundreds of experiences, and with our team, I think we have 4 or 5 full-time people dedicated to extraordinary ability cases. So, we have enough, and some of those individuals have more than 20 years of experience. So have a lot of amazing people to work with. So here's a question. Are these options for you? Before we dive into extraordinary ability, let's talk about all the reasons why you might not need it. So you would not need it if you are poised to make a $900,000 minimum EB5 green card investment. Although if you're from China, for example, it might be 20 years before it's your turn in line for an EB5 investment green card. So, but if you're not from China and you have 900K and you want to start a business and hire 10 US workers full-time on payroll for several years, cool, we can go that route. But extraordinary ability might still be easier. The other time when you would not need extraordinary ability is if you are inside the US now, and you're in love with a US citizen, you're going to get married soon. You don't need it. I've tried to dissuade people from hiring us for extraordinary ability. Like one of our clients was married to a US citizen woman. They had, I don't know that they had kids yet, but I think they had 2 dogs. They'd been married for years, living together for years, and he very much insisted that he did not, that he was a true feminist, and he wanted to get his green card based on his own merit and his own accomplishment, and not through the easy route of marrying or of using his marriage to his wife as a basis for the green card. So we ended up getting his EB-1A petition approved. But just full disclosure, it's a lot easier to do this through a relationship. So if you have that option, please seriously consider it. I know that these dynamics can sometimes influence relationship dynamics in interesting ways. So just, be aware of that going into it. But if you are in the US legally and you're in love with a US citizen or even somebody with a green card, just please be aware those people could sponsor you and you don't have to do this whole extraordinary ability thing. And then, the other option, a lot of people very happily and successfully navigate the entire immigration process from visa to green card, and then later they get citizenship, and they do that whole journey through company sponsorship. And there's a lot of wonderful companies out there, primarily in the technology space that I'm aware of, that have very generous immigration policies that will support you to get an H-1B right off the bat. Maybe even recent students who are still enrolled in school could be put in the H-1B lottery before they graduate. And there are many wonderful tech companies that don't make you wait a certain number of years before they'll start the green card process for you. So if you're in a place like that and you're happy, you don't have to go through all of what we're going to talk about today. I'm trying to dissuade you. You come here and I'm telling you why you don't need it. So if you have these other options, you really don't need what we're going to talk about today. I mean, we could help you with the other stuff, but not extraordinary ability. But here are some of the primary reasons why most people historically have reached out to me or Alcorn Immigration Law regarding extraordinary ability. So one of the reasons is maybe you're happy at a company, but you were born in India or China and you're stuck in that category on the visa bulletin in EB2 or EB3, and you're staring at the visa bulletin road ahead and wondering when those dates are going to move. And, there's a way to get your priority date assigned to another country. It's if you're married to somebody who was born in a third country that isn't India or China. But for a lot of people, they've already, met their loved one. They're married often to somebody with the same country of birth as themselves. So there's no way to speed up the visa bulletin unless they can get into a faster category. And usually that is the EB1 category for those individuals. Now, there's also people who sometimes reach out who are very jaded and depressed and sad because they're in uncomfortable working environments where the work is overwhelming or the culture isn't the right fit for them, and they're struggling personally, and it can be hard to find a new job if you need an immigration H-1B transfer. But often people in the situation are also just saying, I don't want to have this corporate ball and chain. I want to get the right job that's for me. I don't want immigration to have to be a part of this analysis. So the sooner I could just get myself a green card, then I could go do whatever I want, or I want to go consult or, do my own thing. Which leads me to the third main reason that people often reach out to us for extraordinary ability, which is, do you want to found a startup, which is very exciting. And we often use these tools of extraordinary ability for startup founders, either to get the initial O1 visa to be able to come to the US or leave their US company to go work full-time at the startup ASAP in the near term, or down the road when they have already been working there and it's time to get a green card. It's a pretty good fit for startup founders to be able to get green cards for themselves after they've been working there a little while. And I see lots of questions coming in, so this is wonderful. Thank you. I'll be addressing those as I can. And I also just wanted to echo a message that my colleague Edith shared in the chat window, which is that we have a special download for you, which is a fillable PDF that it's a worksheet that you can use to start tracking your own qualifications and see where you stack up for extraordinary ability. So pay attention to that. You can download it from the link in the chat window. So I see lots of great questions. One of them is about patents, and I will be talking about that. So we'll be getting to that soon. And another one is about just the basic logistics. I think this is a great question that I will actually take right now. The individual wrote, can someone on H-1B and working for a company that's sponsoring for an EB-2 green card also apply for an extraordinary ability visa or green card in parallel? And the answer is yes. So once you already have a dual intent visa like an H-1B, or you've already filed the first I-140 through your company, you can have an unlimited number of I-140 green card petitions. So if you want to do an EB-1 in parallel to your company's EB-2, that is actually totally fine. So that's a great lead-in to what we're going to be talking about next. Okay. So the solution for all of these situations: don't have $1 million, not in love with the US citizen, don't want to be stuck at a company, want to have freedom, want to create a startup, want independence. The solution is these very specialized United States extraordinary ability and national interest visas and green cards. So there are very many requirements for extraordinary ability, and we're going to talk about some of the specifics. To put a little bit more color on this with the framework, some of you have heard me talk about this in my podcast or some of the other articles I've written, but US immigration law has two basic concepts. The people who want to become citizens, who want to live here permanently, have to become permanent residents first, and that is called having a green card. If you want to come for a shorter period of time or for a specific purpose, that's when you would get a non-immigrant visa or a non-immigrant status. And so those non-immigrant visas and statuses are things like F1s for students, H-1Bs for employees. So extraordinary ability comes up in a couple different ways. There's three main categories of immigration options that we're going to be talking about today. The first is the temporary version, is an O1 visa for extraordinary ability. It's a way to live and work in the United States for up to 3 years initially, with unlimited 1-year renewals after that. You either work full-time for a company, or you have an agent who puts together an itinerary of your gigs and services that you'll be doing on the O1. It's great for startup founders. A change of status to an O1 can often happen if you're already qualified within 3 to 6 months if you're already in the United States. If you're outside the United States, it's one of the priority visa types that as consulates are reopening with COVID, it's one of the easier, faster ones to get. And it's lovely because There's no minimum salary. The company doesn't really have to have much money. You can have a lot of authority to actually own and run your startup like an H-1B, unlike an H-1B, and there's no lottery. So the O-1A is a really great short-term solution if you can prove that you have extraordinary ability. On the green card side, there are two flavors of green cards. So I mentioned that for green cards, permanent residence is the same. It's the same path. It's the same top of the mountain. Everybody who has a 10-year green card is all created equal in terms of rights and abilities. But there are many pathways up that mountain. And so there are family-based pathways up the mountain. There are employment-based pathways up the mountain. And most companies will sponsor people for green cards in the EB2 category for people with masters and PhDs or several years of experience, or in the EB3 category for people with bachelor's degrees. And there are two types of green cards that are relevant for you guys today, because they can both be self-petitioned, meaning no company is required to sponsor a green card in one of these categories. So they are the EB1A, which is the Extraordinary Ability Green Card, and also the EB2 National Interest Waiver, which is another type of green card that does not quite require these extraordinary ability requirements. It's easier to get. So it's a great catch-all for the folks who were not born in India or China, or if you were, who already have an older priority date that might be current. So let's talk about the extraordinary ability requirements and what they mean. So there are many. I'm going to give you a highlight of some of them. And then at the end, I'll be able to share something really exciting that goes into a lot of depth on each of these things. So if you have follow-up questions, we have a lot of resources for you that we're excited to share. Okay, so what makes somebody have extraordinary ability, either for an O1 visa to go create a startup, or for an EB1A green card, which you can self-petition, or a company can get it for you. But if you don't have a company to do it for you, you can do it by yourself. But it's the fastest type of green card. So it's really good if you're born in India or China. So the first requirement, and there are about 10, but there's kind of loosely more. So I'll be covering all of them. And we're going to sort of go through the highlights. There's a lot more here, but I'll give you a taste and a flavor for them. And the critical thing to know is that to qualify, you don't need all 10, you just need 3. You need USCIS to solidly agree that you meet 3 out of these 10. In the case of O1A, it's actually 8, but loosely 10 criteria. And therefore, that you are one of the people who is at the top of your field in a particular country. Doesn't have to be your home country. Doesn't have to be the United States. It could be a tiny country. It could be Luxembourg. So as we go through this, you can use your worksheet. You can jot down the things that you've done so far that might qualify. And then at the end of this webinar, I have some tools and resources for what to do now if you think you already qualify, if you want to get started. And also, if you don't qualify, some new exclusive resources that you can use to take some time to guide you to beef up your credentials. So that is the bootcamp part of all of this that you will have access to. Okay, so the first one is that the government wants to see if you have received national or internationally recognized prizes or awards for excellence. So if you already have a Nobel Prize, thank you for listening to this webinar. You can just skip to the end and contact us because we can get you a green card. So this is mostly geared for the people who don't have a Nobel Prize yet. We're going to be talking about the minimum qualifications for what you need. So that is why this says lesser prizes. It's because it's like less than a Nobel Prize. So things to keep in mind here, student awards don't count. So I'm very happy for you that you got the Outstanding Undergraduate Student Award for your university. It's wonderful, but the government doesn't care about student awards, so we can't use them here. But we could use big pitch competitions like the one at TechCrunch Disrupt, or Startup Grind, something like that. And VC funding in a startup could also constitute a prize. And there's lots and lots of other prizes as well. I said student awards don't work, but if, let's say you're a researcher, you're not a startup founder yet, and you have a PhD, it might be possible that some of your postdoc grants that you receive, those are at the professional level, not the student level. So maybe we could use those. So if you've ever won a prize or award, write it down. It's probably worth talking about, unless it was very clearly like the Undergraduate Student of the Year award, or a high school award, or a national like high school math competition, something like that. But we've used the winners of hackathons. We've used the winners of coding competitions, of chess competitions for chess masters. So there's a lot of ways to do this one. Now, another factor that you can use to pave your way for extraordinary ability is I call it memberships, because that just seems a lot simpler to me than this, but technically it's evidence of your membership in associations in the field which demand outstanding achievement of their members. So often things that we, with our main group of clients, tend to use are, for scientists, exclusive committees for conference organizing that they've been nominated to. Could be serving on a board of directors for a company. It could be being an advisor at a startup accelerator where you are invited to join to advise the companies. There's also many clubs for entrepreneurs that you're able to join. Now, for this, it's critical to know that I like the standard $49 a year. I'm a software engineer and I want to join IEEE, and I'm getting my annual subscription renewed. That does not count. Remember here, the association has to demand outstanding achievement of their members. So there could be some discussion about, okay, who can get in? How are the people chosen? So keep that in mind. So now another fun one, which if you have two of the three, but not the third, and you have a little bit of money and a little bit of time to invest, this could potentially be a low-hanging fruit by hiring a publicist, a publicity PR agent, because the government doesn't care. Let me rephrase. Please, if you need more evidence, please collect it in an ethical, honest way that has integrity. That being said, the government doesn't care if that New York Times article was written about you without you having a PR agent or after you did. It just matters what newspapers wrote articles about you. Did the articles profile you? Do they mention you as the inventor or the founder or the leader? And what's the prestige of the publications and how much readership do they have? So articles, very, very good to have. Sometimes people come to me and they have 50 or 100, so that's an easy shoe-in, but this is one where people start asking me about how many of something they need. And in the Bootcamp, Extraordinary Ability Bootcamp resource that I'll be sharing with you later, we do have a lot of those guidelines for like how many patents you need, or how many books you need to write, or how many articles you need. It's important to know, though, that the government does not specifically lay out these numbers. So all the estimates that we provide are based on our experience, based on what we've seen work or be questioned for past clients. So really there's a an experience share that is happening with that. So basically with a lot of these, it's very subjective. The person making the decision is not an expert in biochemistry. They have no idea anything about your field. They're maybe in Nebraska, in the Midwest, where it snows a lot, or, you know, once the immigration lawyers got to go on a tour of the California Service Center in Laguna Niguel down by LA, and one of my colleagues was telling me on the tour that they spoke with the USCIS officer who did USCIS stuff part-time, and the other part-time, she played one of Chip and Dale, the rescue rangers at Disneyland, for her other part-time job. So sometimes people want to know, who are the people making the decisions about my extraordinariness? And it's civil servants, bureaucrats, typically have a college degree, would be the answer. Okay, so now another factor, which could be low-hanging fruit if you're in the startup world and in academia, so definitely pursue these invitations when you have them, is judging the work of others. So if you're in the research areas, the sciences, and you're being invited to be a peer reviewer for research publications, definitely do that. If your professor wants you to, if your advisor wants you to do it on his or her behalf, but your name doesn't go on the thing, please keep track of that as well, because we can demonstrate that through letters of recommendation and you can still get credit with the government. And if you're in the startup world, there's a ton of startup pitch competitions. So if you can leverage your network to get invitations to serve as a judge there, you know, actually go to the event, do the judging, get some sort of thank you note proving that you did it, all of that could be very helpful to your case in the future. Now, here's actually a pretty easy one for most people who have created something professionally or research-wise. And this is where the government is wondering, okay, what is it that you do? Like, it's great that you have newspaper articles, but what's the thing you invented? So here they write that they want to see evidence of your original scientific, scholarly, artistic, athletic, or business-related contributions of major significance to the field. So this is where your patents come into play. This is where pending patents can still add value. And it doesn't have to be patents. It could be a new process you created. It could be a discovery. Sometimes we help people with really strong business development backgrounds, and they want us to use things like their being the leading salesperson for Latin America for the prior startup for the last year. And where that gets tricky is, it doesn't matter if you did the same thing as other people, but better than they did it. What this particular evidentiary prong is asking about is your original contributions of significance to the field. So if the reason you hit those high sales numbers are because you invented some revolutionary sales process or technology, that's the thing we can use, but not just hitting the numbers in and of themselves. And remember, you just need 3 of these. So another one is authorship. This could potentially, for people who are writing inclined or who want to, you know, help get some content initial drafts delegated to somebody on Fiverr or Upwork to support you, and then you get it published under your name, you know, that could work as well. But authorships is about evidence of your authorship of scholarly articles in professional or major trade publications or other major media. So, you know, you're probably not going to find somebody on Fiverr to write your PhD dissertation for you. But if you're writing magazine articles in the leading online automotive hardware publication about your new technology that's important for the car industry, that could be a major trade publication, and it could be a scholarly article does not have to be peer reviewed. There's some flexibility there. So there's lots of types of articles that can work for this. This is another one where we talk about the numbers of how much we usually recommend in our Extraordinary Ability Bootcamp course that I'll be telling you about. Now, another one that you could use is, I call it leading in critical roles. And the way the government defines this as is evidence of your performance of a leading or critical role in a distinguished organization. So you don't have to be leading and critical. So for example, if you're the CEO, you could be the leader and critical, but if you're an early stage hire who is a software developer, maybe you weren't leading, but you could have been critical to the success of that company. And then what is a distinguished organization? It's really the reputation of the company, and it doesn't have to be a company. It could be a nonprofit. It could be an association. It just says organization, right? So there's a lot of flexibility there. And I've gotten this approved for many early stage startups. So it's very, very doable. And I think another common thread here is that getting the right evidence and qualifying is the first step, but it's also really important, especially if you're not, I don't know, like there's a lot of volume-based preparation services that I've come across online, and there might be a profile of a person who is a good fit for that, like somebody with a very strong research background with hundreds and hundreds of citations, very prominent. But there's benefits to working with an immigration law firm. Like if you don't have that profile, or if you would appreciate more communication and handholding, or if you want good lawyers to argue that tiny startups are distinguished organizations, right? There's reasons to work with professionals here. But we just want to make sure you have the basics to qualify. That's the agenda for today's webinar. And then, there's other things that are common to all. So just to take a step back, we've just gone through the 10 extraordinary ability criteria. And they are basically the same for O1A visas, which are the temporary, short-term, low-hanging fruit work visa if you need to work at a company right away. That's the O1. The same categories apply to the EB1 green card. They're enforced a little more rigidly and have a little bit of a higher standard, but that's the way to get a green card faster if you were born in India or China. And now, when we're doing the third thing, the national interest waiver green card, we're paying attention to the same constellation of factors, but we can be more creative. We can use things that don't fit neatly into one of those boxes. We can use other accomplishments. We can use if you were a speaker at events, or if you participated on panels, or your TED Talk. The O1 thing doesn't actually ask about talks that you've given, right? So the EB2 national interest waiver is a more flexible catch-all. The only disadvantage from a green card perspective is that if you're born in India or China, it takes longer. And currently, there's no premium processing, but that might be added in 2021 by USCIS under the Biden administration to make it go fast as well. So in general, for all of these, we're usually recommending to our clients that they have 4 to 7 strong letters of recommendation that we support the drafting of before the signatory receives the final version for them to then edit and add any missing information and just make sure everything is accurate. So with things like the letters of recommendation, where we start is with something called a specialty statement, where we're asking our clients to provide a written description, some paragraphs or some bullet points about your field, about your previous achievements, and about the topics your work has addressed. And if you're filling out our PDF worksheet, that really serves a similar purpose as well. So now some bonuses for you. Lots of bonuses on this screen. There are some additional categories that you might be able to use as well. So if you are an artist, a performer, or potentially even a designer, like we've done this for UX and UI designers, there are other factors related to the arts that might be relevant for you. So if your work got displayed in any showcases, you could use that to your advantage. Also, if you've had commercial success in the performing arts, that could be relevant. And for our startup founders, if we're talking about money and valuation on the startup, that's another category we can use. Like maybe you're just making, a really low base salary of I don't know, $50,000 a year because you're on a tight pre-seed budget with limited runway, right? So, however, we can use the valuation of your startup with the percentage that you own as an indication of your high remuneration in your field. So sometimes we have people who've worked at a big tech company and they're like level 7 or level 8 and they're making, 400 to $1 million a year. So that would be a high salary. Startup valuation could be high remuneration. And if you don't have a $20 million startup and you don't make $500,000 a year, that's okay too, because this is actually a more nuanced analysis. In the way it's like an H-1B where we're saying, okay, what's your geography? What's your specific job you do? And what level are you at? And so if you are a hardware engineer in Milpitas and you're making 20% more than the other people who also have a master's degree and 4 years of experience, we could argue that that would also be usable here. And, sometimes, or not sometimes, O1 visas always require that you get an advisory opinion from a labor union or a related group, basically saying, yeah, we're okay with this extraordinary person coming and getting a visa. They're not going to take away jobs from Americans, or they're so special, it's okay. But for many of these types of roles that we're talking about in our audience here today, there's no relevant peer group or labor union to talk to, so we can get that portion waived. So if it's relevant for you, keep track of it. If it's not a part of your industry, don't sweat it. If you read about O1s online and you see that, don't worry about it. There's a way to get around it if it doesn't apply to you. Okay. So now I've been talking about this thing called Extraordinary Ability Bootcamp for some time. And it's also the journey of my pink hair over the summer. I've been busy during COVID. I recorded this 15 module online class. It's available on Teachable and it's called Extraordinary Ability Bootcamp. So if you are benefiting from this content that I've shared today, this is just like, the one sentence intro. We actually have this whole program online with many 10, 20-minute videos. So there's hours and hours of content of me talking through each of the O1 criteria, EB1A criteria, and EB2 criteria in very minute detail with a lot of handouts and resources and planning tools that we've developed at Alcorn Immigration Law. And, I did it because I just felt so sad that so many people wanted to hire us and I wouldn't accept their cases because I told them that they didn't have enough evidence yet. And I really wanted to help them, but then not everybody has the budget to pay an attorney, right? An attorney's hourly rates could be what, $200 to $600 an hour. So if you want to put aside a big retainer and consult with somebody for months or years one-on-one, like, oh, great, I got another award. Okay, good job. Let's put it in the file. What award are you going to get next? We as attorneys can provide that service, but that might not be worth it to you to pay our hourly rates to do it. So there's just this big black hole where I would talk to people who I really wanted to help and who really wanted us to help them, but they didn't qualify yet. And I didn't want them to lose hope, and I didn't want them to stray from the path, because I know how important this is for them and their families and their dreams. So we basically just distilled the knowledge and experience of the law and 4 attorneys and 3 paralegals into this 15 module course that is now available online. So we do this deep dive. I recorded all of the videos. So if you like hearing me talk, you can join that and get more of it. And I break down each of those criteria in depth. What is good evidence? What is bad evidence? What counts? What doesn't count? And there's, as I mentioned, a lot of extra resources for you to use. And there's a lot of requests for evidence. So you can see from this overwhelming screenshot, when the government does not immediately approve a case, which for us, a lot of these we had to pull from several years ago, because our approval rate has just gotten closer and closer to 100% right off the bat. But it's pretty standard what the government requests. They have these template boilerplate responses, and I could probably now recreate the master government template of everything that they might possibly ask for in a request for evidence. And we included it all in this online course. So for every criteria, like for awards, you can actually see the government language from somebody else's anonymized case about what is the standard thing that the government asks for, what types of evidence do they want to see, who did they tell, like what types of evidence was not enough, when did they say it was enough. So I think it's really stellar guidance for anybody who is, needing some time, some months to get organized and put in some more legwork into getting enough accomplishments to really feel ready to apply and have the best opportunity to put your best foot forward. So two brief case studies. One individual who was supported with these materials as an entrepreneur was able to, get a bunch of judging opportunities. They joined as an advisor to several startup accelerators. They entered into some pitch competitions and won some of those. And so even though this person had no scientific background and no prior entrepreneurial experience, we were able to get them their O1 approved as a person of extraordinary ability to run the startup using the same materials. And then another person who was a product manager did not have enough to qualify. And, this is one where she paid me, and I spent most of December 2018 on the phone with her, coaching her through every single requirement and where to publish all of these product manager articles that she was writing and generating. And not only does she now have an EB1A green card, but I wish I could tell you this because it's so good, but I can't because it wouldn't be anonymous enough. I recently saw that this person won another major award that I'm very, very happy about for this individual. But I was like, I knew you when before. I knew I could see it. I know you had the potential. We unlocked it. So it's very exciting for me to be able to support people in this way. So, a little inspiration for you from George Herbert. Do not wait. The time will never be just right. Start where you stand and work with whatever tools you may have at your command. And better tools will be found as you go along. And I really love this quote. It resonates with me a lot. it's important to take some action. If your heart is guiding you that this is something that will benefit you and your future, waiting doesn't help, doing nothing doesn't help. Just doing something, taking a small action will really help. And my dad always used to tell me, don't let the great be the enemy of the good. Sophie, don't be such a perfectionist that you never take action and you never get the thing you want. It would be better to just do something than nothing, because you're procrastinating, because you're trying to do it perfectly. You can't do it perfectly all the time. It's really hard advice for me as a kid. So if you don't have millions to invest and you're not in love with a US citizen, this Extraordinary Ability Bootcamp class is definitely for you. So please check it out. And you can enroll now, and we're providing a special promo code to all of our webinar participants today. So you have the enrollment link here. Edith will be sharing it with you, but with the code EA Bootcamp, you can have a special of 30% off the enrollment fee. So I think it's regularly $495. So that would put it into the $300 range, which if you think about just the value of attorney time and the effect on your life, I don't know, I was thinking that this class might actually be worth several $1,000s. So with that, I will leave the screen up for you, and I will also be answering some of your questions. So thank you so much for putting them into the question and answer panel. I'll take a few minutes to answer as many as I can. Okay. So let's see here. Some of these are very detailed, and I might not know the answer off the top of my head for a specific individual situation, but you can always contact us if you want an individual consultation, for example. Okay, so somebody asked just what is the process called if somebody is in the US on a temporary work visa, such as an O1A or a TN or an H1B? What is the process of converting it and getting it into a green card? So that is called the adjustment of status process. It's with forms I-140 and I-485. That's when you do it in the United States. And if you do it outside the United States, you're getting an immigrant visa through the consular process. And if you go to alcorn.law, there's a button to learn, and the podcast is on there. And I have a lot of podcast episodes about those processes. So somebody asked, is it necessary to write papers or file a patent to prove extraordinary ability? And hope you've learned from all of this material that the answer is no. If you're not a researcher, if you don't have a PhD, if you're not an inventor, it's totally fine. We've gotten hundreds of these approved for people without those qualifications. So it's very doable. Somebody else wants to know if extraordinary ability is an option for a doctor of internal medicine, an MD. Yeah, absolutely. No reason why not. We just have to show that you meet the categories. We've done it for Stanford doctors before, but that level, if you're not at Stanford or Harvard, that's okay. There's definitely other ways to do it through those same criteria that everybody else has to qualify through. Okay. Next up is, can a US startup sponsor your visa? So, but what if the US startup is not owned majority by US citizens? So let's say there's a startup, 2 of the 3 owners are international and they want to hire somebody and sponsor an O1 visa for that person. That's fine, as long as the sponsoring company is a United States entity, such as often investors in the startup world want to see a Delaware C corporation, or sometimes it's an LLC. Totally fine. That US company can be the sponsor. Okay. The O1 requires either an employer or an agent, and there's lots of wiggle room there with how we're doing it. Okay. Now, lots of questions. I love your questions. I'm not going to be able to get to all of them, but you're welcome to reach out to them about it. Here's one. Does it help if I'm a social media influencer? Yeah. I mean, that's basically what this green card is about. So if you have lots of posts or videos that have gone viral and you have a lot of likes or views or reshares, we can definitely use that in the publications prong to show how significant the publications are where your work is being showcased and how many people have seen it. So thank you for that great question. Wonder who you are. All right. So, oh my goodness, so many. Okay, I kind of talked about what a high salary is and lots of individual questions about different routes, but here's one about the timing and how soon you can file. And I would say that if you're in the United States and because of coronavirus, you're not planning on traveling and leaving the United States for a while, then you could start the green card now, even if you're on a non-immigrant visa, like an O1 or a TN, for example. Definitely doable, but that's one where you want to just talk to an attorney to get to pay for a consultation at the get-go to make sure that you can do it. Had another interesting question for somebody about interdisciplinary fields. This one is in music technology. You know, there's other flavors of all of this, the O1B for artists or the EB1B for researchers. I think we just, map out the 4 different pathways and then see how your evidence stacks up for each one of them, and whichever has the strongest case, that's what we go with. But all of this stuff is interdisciplinary. So for an O1, we're never going to just say that you're the best computer scientist of Argentina. We would say that you're the best computer scientist working in healthcare Internet of Things platforms in Argentina, right? Because what you actually do is quite specialized, and it would be hard to say that, that maybe that you're more successful than Apple, unless you're like Sergey Brin in the United States, for example. So we're going to support you to be very narrow with your field. There are a few questions about provisional patents. Definitely helpful. Don't exclude them. We have to look at the totality of the evidence as attorneys supporting you. So we're going to include that. Sometimes that could be the final ingredient that bakes a really good cake. Sometimes we might want to wait. If you don't have enough other evidence, you could go through Extraordinary Ability Bootcamp, get some more accomplishments in addition to your provisional patents while you're waiting. And then whenever you have enough, even if the patent isn't fully approved yet, we could proceed anyway. So that is all the time we have today, folks. Thank you so much for your amazing questions. I was able to answer about half. There's so many more. I would love to keep in touch with you in the future and answer more. We do have so many questions, but basically for any of these, the biggest thing is you have to make sure you qualify, because that could take months or years, just depending on how motivated you are, how much direction you need, how committed you are. So if you're struggling to get enough accomplishments, please enroll in Extraordinary Ability Bootcamp. I made it for you. If you already have enough, then just figure it's probably going to take the lawyers, at least at Alcorn, we guarantee our standard turnaround, if you're qualified, is 3 months to prepare everything. We can expedite it down to 6 weeks if you're really prepared. And then it goes to USCIS, and with premium processing, if that's available, it could take them as little as 2 weeks to make an approval. And NIW doesn't have premium processing. That could take about 7 to 9 months. So it really just depends. And then we have to be strategic about if you're inside the US or outside the US, and what will your path be, and can you get a visa because of COVID, or should you maybe do a change of status? There's a lot of factors. All right, please keep in touch. Do well. Thank you for attending today. Share this with your friends. Please sign up. Please, if you have resources for how we can make the offerings here better, we would really, really appreciate your feedback. It's my goal to be able to serve and support as many people to successfully navigate this as possible. So thank you for your resources. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful night for those of you in India, and sleep well, and see you guys next time. Thanks so much for being here with us. Bye.